The purpose of this video is to explain the emerging bleak outlook of the world, to warn certain communities of the dangers threatening them, and to provide a necessary and vital update on the second video lecture with sensational news to our viewers that will instantly clarify to those few remaining thinkers why world events have been evolving so rapidly lately, and to open their eyes to the truly significant ones worth paying attention to. This year was foreshadowed by a very remarkable event which was covered by all the news agencies worldwide without exception. On February 10th, 2023, lightning struck the head of the statue of Jesus in Rio de Janeiro. This was a sign that the light forces of being had been pushed out of the fine plane, and information from them is being blocked to human perception within our universe, and thus their influence on the cause of events. Yet this news is just a consequence of the breaking news you are about to hear. From the second video lecture, our listeners and viewers learned about the range of frequencies the average representative of humanity on Earth resonates in a proportional ratio corresponding to three forces affecting the humanity within Earth space, and how many of them are capable of creating their own thoughts. Comparing the data from 2019 with the present moment, we get a very dynamic picture which confirms all the suspicion and mistrust with regards to the technologies introduced in the recent times. The world population has decreased by almost 700 million people in the last 4 years. This figure may not sound particularly dreadful without knowing that the world's population is much lesser than official sources indicate. In 2019, it was 3.4 billion people, and now it is down to 2.73 billion people. It also sounds depressing to know that more than half of the people who have died, about 400 million, were among the category of able to comprehend the information we are presenting. The main two causes of the depopulation of Earth for the revised period are natural disasters and chemical poisoning. Most of the depopulation during the last year was taking place in Mongolia and Greenland. The events happening there are not making to the news. The fact worth noting is that Mongolia borders with China, while Greenland is under the patronage of the Kingdom of Denmark. Shakespeare's "Something is rotten in the state of Denmark" apparently is still relevant to our days. Allow me to remind you that in the past revised period, most of the population died due to biological warfare, and the deceased nations were located predominantly in the Middle East, while earlier until 2021 in Latin America. The main reason for the depopulation in these regions has to do with concentration of Santeria and Druze communities in there. These confessions and traditions are directly connected to the light forces of being and right world outlook. Both Santeria and Druze representatives are under the threat of targeted extermination by organizations under the authority of the United Nations. The true intentions are evident by the measures taken in the regions where they reside, even though veiled by plausible narrative. Therefore, should any one of you happen to know a representative of Santeria or Druze personally, please warn them to be vigilant of medical manipulations, provocations, and official representatives of various organizations, keeping in mind that good intentions are paving the road to hell. The decrease in the amount of people capable of independent intellection and thus own thought creation from 5% to 0.3% of the total world population in 4 years sounds like a death sentence to Homo sapiens. During the revised period, approximately 59 million of them died. The main reason of the decreased capability of own thought creation for the last revised period is propaganda, while previously it was the fear of the exile of dissent. The number of people capable of their own thought creation in an amount of not less than 40% decreased by an average of 30,000 annually, while during the time of the last revision the number doubled to 60,000, and currently the amount tripled and there are none of them left at all. 0. This tendency reflects also on the small amount of humans capable of intellection and ideation, and thus their own thought creation at the maximum possible level of 65%. Their range now is from 50% to 65%. And the total number of them is only 35,000 on the entire Earth. There has been an obviously disturbing pattern observed over the past few years, linked to the global events evolving in the background. For the sake of truth, it should be mentioned here that qualitative factor is more significant rather than quantitative factor in this instance. The portrait of an average representative of humanity on Earth in terms of putting to practice thoughts received from certain forces seemed to be predictable. However, it is not the case this time. Pleasantly surprised the indicators of the tendency revealed last year. At the moment, 57% of all thoughts people receive are from Lucifer Force. Thus, Lucifer Force still leads in mind control of representatives of the humanity on Earth. The level of influence of the hijacking forces and the amount of thoughts received from them decreased slightly again. The reduction happened on the account of those permanently departed to the other world. That means that in 2023, the representatives of humanity resonated on the frequencies of the hijacking forces in the amount of 37%, which also means that people began to put into practice more thoughts received from the light forces of being. At the moment, the segment of thoughts received by people from the light forces of being is 6%. At this level, it becomes possible to take over the initiative in any uncontrolled or poorly controlled situation by these people, leading the masses behind them, assuming that they are united by one higher life goal. That is why certain technologies artificially influencing and altering natural mental abilities of people are being used, blocking the information not only via commonly known means, but also including information fields of certain frequencies. One of such technologies is called the Great Signal. The phenomenon was observed by eyewitnesses in early October of 2022 in several locations in Russia, mostly near 60 degrees north longitude. No coherent and convincing explanation was given by official sources, except that it was attributed to a rare natural phenomenon, which is hard to believe, especially when it is known of the evidence submitted by the eyewitnesses of the same phenomenon observed in 1941, at the beginning of the Second World War. Clearly, this technology is not new and is deployed in situations when it is necessary to block receiving information from the segment of the information field associated with the light forces of being. This technology is not only used in Russia, but all over the world. In cities and towns, it can be easily disguised as modern installations with entertainment or attraction purposes. And outside of populated areas, it can be mistaken for a natural phenomenon or remain hidden because of the landscape. The situation is even worse among the individuals with the presence of certain foreign substances in their bodies. This is due to response this bionic technology gets when combined with the technology of great signal and another technology of the fifth generation. Their behavior is lacking any reasonable explanation, and the mental state could be described as gloomy. In such a state, the impulses from the light forces of being are blocked. When such individuals who are acting as both resonators and transistors are bundled with other modern technologies, all those around them are affected as well and unable to respond to the impulses of the light forces of being. The influence on the affected ones and communication between them is carried out through the wireless communication technology of the fifth generation, which suppresses the brain activity even of those who did not undergo the upgrade procedure by the means of perforation. The exception makes only those who are bound together with one great idea, a higher goal, which corresponds to the vibratory fields of the light forces of being. We mentioned all of the emotions and activities which resonate or vibrate on high and ultra-high frequencies in the second video lecture. As for the technology of the fifth generation or force, it suppresses the function of any brain without any exception. Children are especially affected, as their brain absorbs much more energy from the outside due to the natural demand for development. This wireless technology of the fifth generation and its application possibilities are very underestimated due to its extremely destructive effect, not only on living organisms, but also on other material objects. For example, when there are a lot of smart devices in the houses combined with smart meters and artificial intelligence-powered gadgets, they can calibrate between each other and get synchronized on the same resonating frequency, creating an electromagnetic pulse, which causes self-ignition and explosive effect on any material matter, including concrete structures, thus making this technology a very powerful and precise weapon. There have already been repeated cases of spontaneous ignition of such devices in an environment full of smart devices and wireless network of the fifth generation, which led to the self-ignition and complete burnout of living and inanimated objects within its impact range. Now imagine what an impact this technology has on the cellular, molecular, and fine structures when used non-stop day after day. But that's not it. There is undisclosed statistics about the increasing number of suicides in the buildings on which or near which the base station towers of this technology are mounted. Our recommendation would be to pay close attention to this subject and take all the necessary safety precautions. At last, we come to the breaking news. Surely those of you who follow the world events from different sources have noticed the inexplicable chain of sabotages on the strategically important objects and routes of the superpowers worldwide, on the background of widely publicized events. Those sabotages are causing human casualties and environmental disasters, not to mention the economic and industrial damage they have done. Within the shortest month of 2023, February, we have counted 10 sabotages in the United States alone, leading to casualties and severe damage to the environment. And they keep occurring with the same regularity in March as well. For the first half of March, we already heard of 4 significant sabotages as well. In fact, the total number of incidents was twice bigger during observed period. They just didn't fulfill their destructive potential. On the 3rd of February 2023, A freight train operated by Norfolk Southern, carrying hazardous materials, wrecked and caught fire, forcing mass evacuations. Over 1 million gallons of hazardous materials and pollutants, including toxic flammable gas, was released into the environment around the town of East-Palestine in Ohio. The smoke from the fire covered the town of East-Palestine. Serious concerns about air, soil, and water pollution are raised. February 12th, a massive fire broke out at a waste-to-energy plant in Doral, Florida. 4 buildings out of 11 were caught on fire, along with oil tanks spreading on trucks. It took a few days to put out the fire. On February 13th, a Union Pacific train collided with an 18-wheeler near Splendora, Texas, killing the driver and derailing 21 rail cars, according to the Splendora Police Department. Hazmat crews estimated 100 gallons of diesel fuel were released in the crash. On February 14th, a tanker truck hauling nitric acid overturned on an interstate highway near Tucson, Arizona, causing a leak of its highly toxic, volatile cargo in a fiery wreck that shut down the road for hours. The perimeter around the incident was evacuated. Other details are kept in secret. On February 15th, there was a chemical fire in a storage tank in an Oklahoma port of Catoosa to the northeast of Tulsa. The port was evacuated. It is unclear what caused the fire. Port officials told local media that they were unsure of what the tank had contained. The Tulsa Fire Department said that it had been empty. On February 16th, a massive fire broke out at a nursery Supplies Incorporated in Central Florida, south of Orlando, Kissimmee, burning thousands of plastic pots that sent flames and plumes of thick black smoke into the air. February 17th, there was a fire at the Clean Harbors waste treatment facility in Braintree, Massachusetts. The fire started after 8 trailers burst into flames on the property. It released hazardous amount of materials, including sulfuric acid and paint, into the air. 20th of February, an explosion at an Ohio metal plant, I. Schumann & Co. in Cleveland, Bedford, left 1 dead and 13 injured. The building's interior is in a catastrophic state. February 21st, 2 dead and 3 hurt after an explosion and massive fire at Migley Welding Business in Florida. On February 23rd, the twin-engine Beech BE-20 crashed in a wooden area after taking off from Little Rock's Bill and Hillary Clinton National Airport, killing 5 CTEH consultants who were en route to Ohio to investigate the explosion at the metal plant in Bedford, Cleveland. CTEH stands for the Center of Toxicology and Environmental Health. March 1st, multiple explosions and fire at A.J. Rose metal fabricator plant in Ohio. Hazmat specialist called. The explosions were reportedly caused by propane tanks used for forklifts and nitrogen tanks used in the tooling process. On the 1st of March, hazmat teams and emergency crews were deployed to the Lavelle Industries plant in Burlington, Wisconsin, after reports emerged that an unknown chemical has leaked from one of the tanks. The plant was evacuated. Lavelle makes rubber and plastic products for industrial equipment, transportation, electronics, and medical applications. On March 8, 3 people were injured and diesel fuel spilled into a nearby river after a freight train derailed when it hit a rock slide in remote West Virginia. On March 16, BNSF train derailed in Washington state in Anacortes, spilling diesel fuel on tribal land along Puget Sound. What does this all indicate of? This indicates of there is a serious conflict of interests which led to a fight to the death, forcing to make measures which earlier would be considered unacceptable. What is going on? There is a war going on between Lucifer Force and the hijacking forces, in which the light forces of being are not taking part and have been pushed out of the fine plane using modern technologies, blocking information and impulses from them. This is done to prevent any possibility of influencing people capable of receiving the thoughts from them, to put them into practice, and to take over the initiative and overturn the situation to the good of the humankind on Earth. This war began at the end of the last calendar year, and all the data and updates given in this video are likely to change significantly very soon. I would like to remind our viewers that our material world is a reflection of what is happening on the fine plane. We have lived up to that moment when war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength, as in 1984 by George Orwell. What could be done when the situation appears hopeless as it is now? All the recommendations on the practical activities we gave in our third video lecture are still in a good standing. Never despair and never give up, no matter what. Keep your spirit high and hope to see the light at the fall of oblivion, as things could be changed with some effort. For those of you who are doubting what to do, we would like to share one of the main principles of the light forces of being. In situations when there is no certainty what is right to do, better do nothing to lessen the possible damage done to oneself, surrounding people, and environment. Traditionally, we release this video at the time of the commencement of the actual new year, which falls on the spring equinox. The dates of the equinoxes from the official sources are incorrect. This is done intentionally to prevent observant people to discover certain patterns through their analysis. Passover of the year and the start of the new year happens and is celebrated on the 22nd and 23rd of March. Certain period preceding the festival has to do with the death of Jesus. Yet spring equinox also has to do with creation of human being in the image of the Creator, and thus is celebrated by the light forces of being, and should be celebrated by humans. Observers of the land may treat themselves with the festive dishes during these days. Felicitous New Year to everyone!